Hello, Martijn. I can't hear you, by the way.
Hey Joel, nu wel als het goed is.
Okay. Martijn, you have been made co-host right now.
Hello, everybody.
Hello everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi, guys.
Hello,
Ladies,
good afternoon all.
Can you hear me?
Good
Hello,
evening.
everyone.
Good morning in
Morning in
People
Chicago.
here, Bob from New York.
I'm from Florida.
San
Good
Diego.
afternoon from Berlin. It's Dave from Australia.
Okay, it's a very international audience today. That's great.
Bob, this is Bob from New York.
This
Chris
is Jorge,
from Calgary.
Jorge from New Jersey.
Carol from
And
Maine.
checking in from Miami.
Where are you from Boston?
Germany.
Chris from Calgary.
Phil from London.
Tom Sizemore, Tennessee, United States.
Howdy, Tom.
Steve Lopak, Los Angeles.
Jamie from Israel.
Portugal here with 32 degrees.
Okay, you go away again.
So just to let everybody know, when the presentation starts, we will mute everyone. And we'd also appreciate it if you would turn off your videos. It's easier if you do it yourself. And then if you want to talk, the easiest way to ask a question is to do the chat. The chat is at the bottom, and it's just CHAT. And you can either chat to everyone or you can chat to one of the co-hosts. You have 3 co-hosts today that will help you. If you have any problems with your mic or any other problems, just privately message a co-host and they'll try to take care of it for you.
We just say stop video.
Stop video.
Yeah, just click on the little video icon next to your name.
My tulips are going to be
Oh, all right.
Or actually down on the bottom left, stop and start video. And then if you want to talk, the microphone is in the bottom left.
And we should mute ourselves as well?
We're going to mute you because we have a mute all button, which is very handy.
Right. Okay, good.
And then if he's in the middle of a presentation and you want to ask a question, please wait until the end of the section. There'll be a time when Joel will answer questions, or if you have an immediate question, just either type it in the chat box to everyone or just pick a co-host and ask them.
Okay, and to stop the video, my video, it's the first one. When I click on my video, I think it says the first place, like interrupt video, right? That's the one I have to click now?
In the bottom left where it says start video and stop video.
Bottom left. Ah, okay, all right. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm back again. I just smoked my cigarette, so I'm almost ready to start. You have to know.
Oh, you got to stop that bad habit.
I know that. Yeah. Is that you, Richard?
Yeah, it's me, buddy.
Oh man, can you please go away, Richard? No, nice to have you here. Okay,
everybody, you got a major treat going on with Joel today.
Oh my God. I hope everything will go well, because before we started, all sorts of things went wrong. So I'm in a heightened state of anxiety over here. Okay, I think there's 27 more people waiting in the waiting room. So
for you now.
It is.
Yeah. I bought a bottle yesterday for the recipe tonight.
Oh.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Hello, Joel.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, I got my demo webinar.
That's Michael, right?
Oh,
Michael
yeah.
McLaughlin.
Both,
How are you doing?
Both now, great.
Been lots and lots of email from work, although mostly news clips.
Okay, I think I'm going to start. There are only 65 people in. There might be a few more that are going to attend this meeting. But I think I'm going to start, if that's okay with all of you. All right?
Yep.
So,
Okay, at this time, we're going to turn off all the video, all the mics, and everyone please turn off your own audio. Thank you.
all right. Welcome, everyone. This is the advanced class. Many more than last week. I think last week, the beginner session went really well, judging the emails and comments that I received from all people. So thank you for that. So in case you don't know, this is the advanced class, and people from the advanced class. Last week we did the beginner session, and I've decided last minute to add those people from that beginner session to this advanced session. So instead of being here with 25, 30 people, we're here with something close to, well, at this moment, 64 people, but there might be 15 more coming in soon, okay? But I think together with the three co-hosts, I think we should be able to manage this quite smoothly. So thank you, co-hosts, Martijn Kort, Robert Clark, and Mike Packard. So thank you for that, because without you guys, I couldn't do this session at all, you know, because that would be too much of a hassle for me. So let's get started. And this is the advanced class. So first, a few practical announcements. Okay, that is, if I can scroll through. Yeah, there it is. So this is going to take roughly 2.5 hours. Co-hosts again, Mike Packard, Martijn Kort, and Robert Clark. Each separate demo can take between 10 to 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. You, please ask questions after I added this, the demo. You can always ask questions in the chat box, and Martijn, Mike, and Robert will pick those up as much as possible. Okay, you've already been told to mute microphones and only mute if you want to ask something. Okay, videos will be turned off. Okay, so that's the thing. Also, it is only worth attending this advanced class if you have watched the previous video from the previous class. So, because the thing is, there's a lot of things to be covered today. Let's say all the features that I've, of the panel, I've already discussed last week. So I'm not going to go into that. So if you haven't watched the video yet, please watch that video after the session. But I hope you've already watched it, because else it's really hard to follow this session. Okay. Finally, I'm also going to post a video from the previous session, but also from this session on the public channel. I'm not going to do that right away, but you can always see the recorded version from the Zoom cloud. So I will be sharing that recorded version as soon as it is available to me. So you get an email later today, perhaps tomorrow morning, but you will get it, okay? So that's the practical part. Now the topics from today. So I'm going to do a short recap of last week's session, but I'm only going to go into the recommended workflows. And also I'm going to talk a little bit more about creating depth and restore with and without hard mask. So that's the thing that we're going to start off today. I forgot last week to tell something about the preparation before you start working in the Artisan Pro X panel. So I'm going to go into that as well. I'll also be demonstrating how you can use Artisan Pro X on color images. That's going to be a very short demo, because this is not about color photography, but of course about black and white photography. But the thing is, you can also use it on color images, because the panel is designed in such a way that it will only affect the luminance values independent of the original color information. I'll also be talking about increase and decrease in local contrast with Pro Tools or microzones, or and the effect is usually called sharpening. So I'm going to be demonstrating a method to sharpen your images without using the sharpening features in Photoshop. Of course, the main topic of today is going to be the special effects, because I think that there's a lot of interesting features in there and interesting, let's say, applications for the special effects feature. So I'm going to be discussing that in detail. And finally, I'm also going to be talking about mask, the management of mask. And I'm trying to give you a preview of the advanced masking class that is going to be held later in May, but that is going to be a paid session. So think roughly about $100 for that session that takes around 2.5 hours. So if you're interested in joining that class, just send me an email and I will put you on the list. So having said that, I think, okay, this is later on. I'm going to start with the first presentation. That's about the, not this is not a short break. It's about this. Okay, so I'm going to do a short recap. I'm going to turn off my video. I'm not going to turn off my sound, of course, but just my video. So a short recap from last week. Okay, so first of all, this panel is not a collection of just random features. This panel is built around my personal artistic view on black and white photography, and the most important principles of this panel, and actually also for my black and white photography philosophy, if you want to call it like that, are the following. Subtlety is key in my workflow. So whatever I do, whether I do this manually in Photoshop or do it with a panel, it is meant to create subtle adjustments in every layer. So many times you will see that I will create a lot of layers to just make one very small subtle adjustment, but that's very deliberate. Okay, so the panel has been built around this principle of creating subtle transitions, subtle tonal contrast, that kind of thing. So that's very important. Also, but it's very important in my personal view on black and white photography. Okay, I'm going to drink something, so you might hear some sounds. It's the principle of selective contrast in and around the figure to draw the eye in. So usually, if you look at a photograph or any other visual image, you will see that you can create a very effective photograph if you make sure that the most important object, what I call the figure, well, you will be drawn to that specific object when the contrast is the highest in or around that specific figure, that object. At the same time, it should also contain the brightest light. So that's a very important principle in my workflow. Also very important principle is the principle of creating depth with light-dark transitions in every plane. Well, what do I mean with plane? So for example, if you look at a landscape image, like the one that we're going to discuss later today, this one, you will see that this is, by the way, a landscape in Ireland, in Killarney. So for example, this can be considered a plane, the sky. There's just one plane. Okay, but here, if you look at the foreground with all the mountains, it's actually just one big plane because there are no real identifiable edges in one of those mountains. So basically, you could say that the entire foreground is a plane. So here in a landscape image, you typically have two planes. If this were, let's say, a tree over here, you could say, well, the sky is a plane, and also the tree is also a plane. Okay. If you look at architectural images like this one, for example, the New York City skyline, you will see that it has the sky, which is a plane. You have another plane over here, that's the water part in the foreground. But then, of course, if you look at a building like this is one plane. I hope you can see my cursor over there. This is one plane. This is another plane. Here, another yet again. Over here, over here. So in architectural images, there are always many, many planes, depending on the type of architectural structure you're going to photograph. So that's very important, that I always try to create depth in each and every plane. So going back to, where was I? Over here. So creating depth with light-dark transitions in every plane. That's a very important principle in my workflow, and hence also in my panel. So what creates depth in post-production? I think I've already explained that last week in detail. So it's always about a gradual and very subtle transition from dark to light and vice versa. So that is the most important thing in post-production. Of course, if you are shooting in the field, then there are also other elements that play a role in creating depth, right? I mean, you can look at perspective lines, but in post-production, the correct and gradual transition from dark to light is the most important tool to create depth. Also important for the creation of depth is to be able to identify edges and increasing or decreasing the contrast in and around those edges, right? So for example, if you look here at this photo, you will see that, for example, that the horizon line over there is a little bit fuzzy, right? It's a little bit foggy and it's not so sharp. Also, it doesn't contain the darkest tones. The foreground, however, is very dark, it's very detailed. So it has also the darkest tonal values. So to make sure that the perception of depth is correct and is enhanced, what you need to do is to make sure that those edges over there, the objects farthest away from you, are a little bit fuzzy, let's say smooth, but also very low contrast. So it's important that if you have, let's say, an edge like this for this plane, the sky, that you, let's say, almost blur those edges. Well, actually, it's not really blurring. It's more like removing the contrast around those edges. Well, you should actually increase the contrast over here around those edges, for example. Okay. So that's very important. Gradual solid transition from light to dark or dark to light, plus identifying edges and trying to increase or decrease the contrast in or around those edges. Here you see that, for example, here's a very hard edge over here, this building. So basically the contrast is here is very, very high. Okay, so and basically a rule of thumb is as follows. The closer the objects are to the viewer, the higher the contrast, the darker the tonal values can be, and the farthest away the object is from the viewer, the lower the contrast, the more fuzzy the outline of that specific shape. And also it's a little bit lighter usually. Okay, so those are ways to create depth in each and every plane. Okay, going back here. So I've already discussed this, correct and gradual transition and identifying edges. So if you know that in post-production, that the most important elements are only light and shapes, apart from the color, because color is just an aspect in the spectrum of light, right? So basically in every photograph, you only have light and shapes. So you can control each photograph completely if you can isolate light and if you can isolate shapes. So if you control those things, if you can isolate those two, let's say, two elements, you can basically control everything in the photograph. Okay, so in Photoshop, you can identify and isolate light by use of luminosity masks. So you can automatically generate those luminosity masks and will identify automatically what the light intensity is. I'm going to go into detail in this session of how to use and how to create those luminosity masks with the panel. On top of that, with hard mask, you can isolate shapes or planes. So if you use both luminosity masks and hard mask, and you combine them together, you actually control everything in a photograph. So this way we can control depth and selective contrast. We can create stronger shapes, and we can effectively isolate figure from ground. So those are things that we already discussed last week, right? Okay, creating depth and restore. So I need to say something about this. I already discussed this in detail last week, but take a look at the following bullet points. So creating depth. Use with masks with natural hard edges. So for example, sky or plane and architectural object. Or with artificial hard edges. And then you can use a marquee tool. What do I mean with the artificial hard edge? What I mean with that is that, for example, if you look over here, I would do something like this with my marquee tool. This is an artificial hard edge, right? It's not a natural hard edge because the natural hard edge is over here, not here. So this would be an artificial hard edge. Okay, going back here. So the more natural hard edges that there are, the better. Usually there's no restore needed in those cases then. The fewer natural edges there are, the more you have to correct with restore and the less the effect. So general rule, restore always needs to take place around artificial hard edges like this one, for example, and not so much with a natural hard edge. Okay, is this clear up to now? Anyone have a question for now?
All
So
clear.
far, so good.
Yes, so good. All right. So let me continue now with the following. So I'm going to do a demonstration. So for this, you really need to pull up the file that I sent to you. That's the one from the Killarney landscape, this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is a workflow without mask, and after that, I'm going to do a quick workflow with one hard mask. So this is going to be just a very quick workflow because the thing is, I've discussed this in detail already last week. I just want to give you a sort of refresher, okay? So workflow without mask. You always start off with the black and white conversion to neutral. You do some advanced adjustments, microzone adjustments, and optionally you can also create depth without pre-created hard mask, but with an artificial hard edge, so with the rectangular marquee tool. And then use restore. Optional is split toning. So let's get started. I'll give you guys a few moments to pull up your files. Okay, everyone is ready. Everyone can see my screen, right? My Photoshop screen, that's correct, right?
Yep, you see Photoshop.
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. So over here, this is the color file of an image that I've created a few months ago. I shot it in Ireland, in Killarney. It's called the Ladies View, if I'm correct. And we're going to try to do a very small and short black and white conversion and a few adjustments. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the entire process, just going to give you a few highlights. As you can see here, I've already created some hard masks. We're not going to need those. So if you want to play later on with the hard mask that you've seen here, you can do so. And but now I'm not going to use that. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start off with the black and white conversion, as always, right? So, and I would always recommend to go with the neutral black and white conversion, because the neutral black and white conversion is completely independent of any color information. So if you are using, for example, phase 1 achromatic camera, then you can also use this tool. If you're using a Leica monochrome camera, you can also use this panel, because this is completely independent of any color information. Basically, the entire panel is completely independent of any color information. It only looks at the luminance values, because it only looks at light and basically also shapes. So that's how I designed the panel, without any color information dependency. So I'm going to start off with neutral. Okay. So usually if you would have a hard mask, and by the way, so if you have hard mask, you can always control the image so much better than without hard mask. Because in this case, if you don't have any hard mask, you can only use the soft mask or luminosity mask. So for now, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to discuss it later. So now I'm just going to go with a few manual adjustments without using the hard mask. So suppose that I want to darken the sky. Usually you would load your hard mask and then do something like this. Let's say sky over there, and then go with first with a decontrast, for example, and then move the slider that way. So this way you can, let's say, remove the contrast in sky and then work from there. Okay, I'm not going to do that here because I'm supposed to not have any hard selections. So how do you do it if you don't have that hard selection? You can just take your marquee tool, for example, and do something like this. Just make sure that the marquee tool, the edge of the marquee tool is roughly a little bit over the edge of the mountains over here, of the mountain line. Something like this. What you can do then is still go with low key. All right. Move the slider that way. Okay, I forgot to, okay, I did something wrong, so I have to cancel. I forgot to include that part. Back again. So here, this is better. Okay, and I also forgot to save it. So if you do something like this with your marquee tool, try to save it first, okay? Because it's, even though it's just a temporary selection, try to save it, okay? So I call it temporary 1, T1. Okay, now I'm going to click on low key and then move the slider all the way that way. Apply. Okay, so now you see this strange edge, of course. So now what you do then is make use of the restore feature. Because like I said, if you have artificial hard edges, what you need to do then is to do restore. You don't have to do that if you have a natural hard edge. In this case, I have an artificial hard edge. So I'm going to load my temporary selection, T1, like this. And then basically you go to creating depth, because the restore feature can be used for any other feature in the panel, not just for the creating depth, but also for microzones, for advanced adjustment, for global adjustments, anything. Okay, so here I'm going to use extra small, and extra small, if you still remember that, is has a coverage of around 10%, small 25, medium 50, and large 75%. So I'm going to use extra small and see what the result is going to be. Always make sure that the layer that you want to perform a restore with is right on top of the last layer without the adjustment. So in this case, it's already right on top of that. So make sure you stand on the last layer, this layer. Now just perform a restore with extra small from bottom to top. You see now the edge has been removed completely, and it's already looking good, right? I mean, this is before, this is after. It's a very quick adjustment, but exactly right, I think. So what can you do more? I'm still going to use the same selections. I'm going to use load selection T1 again. And now I want to create a little bit more depth. So I'm going to go from top to bottom with light. Sorry, from dark to light. Okay, so I'm going to select from the drop-down list from the creating depth section, top to bottom. And I'm going to go with let's say, going to go with a large, again, small, medium, large. This is the coverage of the adjustment. Small 25, medium 50, large 75%. D for dark, L for light, D1 is 25, D2 50, D3 75, and D4. Sorry, no, this is nonsense. Okay, so this is dark, darker, darker, even darker. Okay. Sorry, so I got confused myself. So let's go with a large 75% coverage from top to bottom with a D2 like this. Okay, since it's going to go from top to bottom, you don't need to do any restore over here, right? But if I do this from bottom to top, and I want to make it lighter over here, I can do that. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with a medium from bottom to top, from this artificial hard edge to over here, roughly. Let's say with an L2, so light. Okay, you see that if you remove the selection, you will see this strange hard edge, right? So just reload that again, that selection, and perform a restore. And I'm going to start off with extra small, because I think that's going to be enough. Okay, if you look here now, see that? That's the light transition over here that I just added. And this is before and after 2 iterations. Darkening from top to bottom and lightening from bottom to top with the restore from bottom to top. And you have this effect. It's already quite, well, good looking, I think, you know, after just a few adjustments, without even creating a hard mess. You just have to be very clever about how you, let's say, position your selection. And I would always recommend, if you don't have a hard mess, a pre-created hard mess, to just use the rectangular marquee tool, because then it's so much easier to do a restore if you have this artificial hard edge. You can also do it with the lasso tool, but the thing is, if you do something like this, roughly speaking, Okay, so something like this. Then the restore from bottom to top is not going to be that accurate, because the thing is, it will affect this more over here if you do extra small than this part over here, for example. Okay, so I would always recommend, if you don't have a pre-created hard mask, to just use the rectangular marquee tool for that. Any questions up to now? Just a quick few questions, if there are any. It allows me to bring something as well.
Yeah, Joel, this is Kevin Holiday. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
When you say the absolute neutral conversion is independent of color information, how is that any different than something like Silverflex or Topaz black and white conversion?
Okay, I think Silverflex Pro also has an absolute neutral conversion. I'm not sure how that works, because I haven't seen the code for that. But the thing is, it has the same kind of result. So if you look at Silverflex Pro, you will see there's also I think it's called neutral, right? And I think it's the same as this. It's the same as this. It has the same kind of effect. So my guess is that they also are not using any color information there. Because the thing is, as soon as you try to use color information to come up with a neutral conversion, it's almost impossible, because many people will think that if you try to make a neutral conversion, it would be enough to just completely desaturate it, but it's not the same. It's not the same for some reason. But yeah, I think the neutral conversion there has the same sort of algorithm as this one. Okay?
Yeah, okay, thanks.
All right. So let's move on. So I'm going to do a few more adjustments. Like I said, if you use the workflow without mask, you have to do neutral conversion. You can do a few advanced or microzone adjustments, and you can even create depth. And so I've already done that, creating depth without pre-created hard mask. So now you can basically go on and do some advanced adjustments. So let's say that I like to darken this a little bit more. Well, you basically grab your lasso tool like this, for example, try to come up with something that makes some sense, and you can just go in here and then, let's say, darken it. Okay, you see that if I remove the selection, that it has been darkened in quite a neutral, natural way, and also neutral way, right? So that's something that you can use as much as possible in your photo if you don't have any pre-created hard mask. But basically, I would always prefer this, but you can only use that if you have those pre-created hard masks, or if you can create an artificial hard mask with the marquee tool. Okay. What you can also do here is to do something with the microzones, for example. So just go in here, and let's say I just want to, lighten this up a little bit. So for that, you need to come up with a few samples of this area over there. So I'm going to take a few samples over here and then look at the RGB values over there. Okay, and then you have to match it with some of those tonal zones over there. So I'm going to take a few samples over here. That is around 101, 97, 72, 81. Let's say it's the average value something around 80. Okay, let's go with 80. So that's the extras, extra light shadows. Activate it. Okay, gives this message. So basically you can now use your lasso tool and then try to darken or lighten it. If you want to make sure that you have selected the right zone, you can also go to channels, because what the panel does is to create some temporary channels over here. These are not luminosity masks, but these are called asymmetrical luminosity masks. So it's a little bit different than the normal luminosity mask. So here you see that if you look at this, you'll see that I've chosen the right channel, right? Because this is white and this is very dark. So meaning this will be revealed, this will be concealed. You can also see it here and here. So I'm thinking that I have the right kind of luminosity mask, asymmetrical luminosity mask. So now I can do this. I can, let's say, select this. And I don't have to be afraid that it's going to bleed over the edge, because this will be protected. So I'm just going to go with the, let's say, medium lighten. You see that? This before and after. And again, it's going to be very subtle, okay? Because the panel is built on the principle of creating subtle, very subtle changes. So if I look here, you don't see that edge. So it's a very natural transition, okay? In this case, I've used medium lighten over here with the default, meaning that it will always bleed a little bit over the edge, okay? In this case, with the strict adjustments, if we would use that one, it will stay within the edge. So if I have to move those controls a little bit that way. So if I go back to my selection there, and if I use medium lighten, then you will see that the transition is also going to be very smooth to its adjacent areas, but it will stay within the edge. Okay, so let me do that. Okay, I hope you could see that. So this is before and after, all right? There's always going to be a little bit of bleeding over the edge, even though this is protected, because the thing is, of course, that those asymmetrical luminosity masks are not always perfectly black over here. For example, this is dark gray, so it's going to bleed a little bit over that edge. So in this case, it would have been better to, let's say, stay within the edge with the lasso tool like this, okay? All right, so this is a very simple application of the microzones. So you usually, again, if you don't have to create a hard mask, just use the microzone adjustments, okay? But you can also do this. So let me try to create an artificial hard mask again, because I always prefer to work with the creating depth and not so much with the microzone, because this is actually intended to create local contrast. And what I mean with that is to increase the contrast in a very small area in such a way that you can enhance the details and hence create a sort of sharpening effect. Okay. So I'm going to get, so I've already got rid of those temporary channels. So don't forget to deactivate it, because else you're going to end up with too many channels, and that's only going to increase your file size. So you can also do this. So suppose that I want to, let's say I'm going to create a artificial hard mask. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I just want to darken this a little bit more from here to there. So you can do this basically. And that is going to be my selection. So I'm going to save it. So I can always perform a restore after the fact. I'm going to call it T2, temporary 2. Going to deselect it. So what I'm going to do is to use that artificial hard mask and combine it with the Pro Tools over here. Okay, so luminosity mask. I'm going to create a few luminosity masks. So basically what I'm doing now in the Pro Tools section is actually meant to be done all manually. Okay, so if you're into that kind of thing, you like to have a little bit more control, you can create your own luminosity mask and combine it with specific selections. And you can also create your own microzones over there. So let's do this. Okay, let's go with a few light luminosity masks. So what I want is basically darken those lighter areas that you see over here. Okay, so I'm going to create a few light luminosity masks. Okay, and now I'm going to evaluate those luminosity masks. I don't know how many of you have experience with luminosity masks, because I know there are lots of panels out there that create luminosity masks, but the actual use and, let's say, assessment of those luminosity masks is always a little bit different per panel, but also per user. But what I always do when I do this manually is always evaluate all those luminosity masks to see what luminosity mask will apply in my specific situation. So in this case, if I want to target those lighter areas over here, and I want to darken those, then I'm going to look at the light luminosity masks. I'm going to create them through the panel, and then I'm going to evaluate them. So let's start with lights 1. So this is not going to be useful because, as you know, light will reveal, black will conceal, but this is all light over here, right? So I try to have as much isolation as possible. That's the objective. So now I'm going to evaluate lights 2. Well, that's actually too dark, right? I mean, if you look here, it's completely black. So that's not going to be useful. Well, I see a few white areas over there, but that's not going to be of any use. So I'm going to delete those, and I'm going to create the half values. So over here are the half values. So 1 was too light, 2 is too dark. So I'm guessing that 1.5 would be the right one. So click on light half values. So I'm going to go straight to lights 1.5. You see that here? Now they're visible, right? So I can use this mask to combine it with my artificial hard mask. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to duplicate this so I can easily get rid of the rest. I'm always doing this to get rid of those luminosity masks quite easily just by clicking on this button. Okay, so there I have it. I'm going to use that in combination with this. Can you still follow along? Do I need to stop a few seconds?
No, it's all good.
Yeah, all right.
Good, we're good.
Okay, so load that hard mask, the artificial hard mask, T2. All right, okay, one thing, I forgot to do one thing, so I have to go back. Since I'm doing this with the Pro Tools, it means that I also have to add a new layer manually, okay? So it's not going to be done automatically by the panel. So I have to do everything manually. That's why it's called Pro Tools, because the thing is, when you're a pro, you have to do everything manually, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a new layer there manually. Just Command J or Control J. Load the selection. T2. Now load again with lights 1.5 copy. Right? And now intersect it with that hard selection, the artificial hard mask. Like this. Yeah? Click OK. So now the lights 1.5 luminosity mask will only apply to this area that was indicated by the artificial hard mask, right? So now I can basically lighten this up or darken it. Okay, of course I want to darken it, so I'm going to use one of those adjustments. Again, normal adjustments stand for add and amplify. Selective adjustments stand for amplify only. So the thing is, you cannot use this if there's no tonal value in there yet. Okay, so because the thing is, this doesn't work on pure black and it doesn't work on pure white. So it always needs to have a specific tonal value. So for example, if this were pure black, I need to do something here first with the normal adjustment, with let's say L1. That is roughly, I think, 20% brightening. I'm not sure how much anymore, but close to that. So you always add first and then go here with add and amplify. But right now, I think I can just go straight here because I think there are already some tonal values in there. So I can just click on darken. Okay, it's a very subtle adjustment. So I'm going to click on darken 4. You see that?
Somehow the water is only selected. The river.
Yeah, no, but the thing is,
instead of United.
I think the rest is also selected. Okay, I think the water is going to be affected more because it's the lightest. So what I'm going to do is, I don't think let's say the adjustment is too visible. So I'm going to start with normal first, so add and amplify. Okay, here. I think if you look here, you see that, right? Can you see that it has been darkened just a little bit more? Okay, the water is also a bit dark, but I'm going to fix that later, okay? But here, I'm going to do it again, but add and amplify because there are not enough tonal values over there because they're also being protected by the luminosity mask. So in that case, you can use more normal adjustments, more add and amplify than this. So going to go with D3 and a few times more. Okay, so here, if you look at this area, you see that it's a very subtle darkening of only those lighter areas. I hope you guys can see that. Right? So now, of course, this has been darkened as well, and that shouldn't be the case. So what I'm going to do is now load selection of that T2. Okay. Make sure it's right on top of the layer without the adjustment, and it's already the case over here. So now I'm going to go to gradient depth and start with the extra small first and see if that's already enough. Okay, looks quite good, I think. Well, a little bit more. I'm going to go with small. All right. So I think it's, well, I think it's more or less fixed right now. So here you see that let's say what I call the micro contrast, so the lighter areas in a darker area are darkened in a very subtle way. Again, before and after, right? So you can also use the Pro Tools like this, but in combination with artificial hard mask, and then well, come up with something that looks pretty, well, pretty subtle thing. Again, this before, after. You see that those lighter values over there, the details there, the distracting details, especially those, but also the lighter parts in the grass over there, are darkened, right? So this is also what you can do if you don't have any hard mask, and just work with the rectangular marquee tool, combine it with some of the luminosity mask, intersect them together, and then darken it, and then do a few restore. Because the thing is, again, if you have an artificial hard mask, you have to perform a restore from the artificial edge over there. This is not an artificial edge, it's a natural hard edge. Sorry, that's been created by the framing of the photo. So you only have to perform a restore over there. Okay, so this, yes?
Question?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
The restore, could you just briefly go into exactly what does that do?
Okay, basically what it does is to, so for example, if I look at this situation, let's go back a few steps. Okay, I'm going to go over here. So this is before, right? Yeah, that's correct. So the thing is, what it does behind the screens is to look at the layer that's right beneath the last layer with the adjustments, and it's trying to restore parts of this layer into this working layer. That's what it's doing behind the screen. Okay, is that clear? And it does it in a very subtle way, using a specific kind of gradient. Is it clear? Because the thing is, I can also talk about the technical details, but I don't think that's very interesting. But that's basically what it does.
It blends the two?
It blends it too, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
In a very subtle way, okay?
Yes.
Okay, so that's, okay, now I have to do it again because this doesn't look good. Hold on a minute. So I'm going to go with a few smalls. See that? It's and you can click on it again, and it goes even deeper. You see that? So I think it looks much better right now. But this is what you can do with the if you don't have any pre-created hard mask. So this is the workflow without hard mask. Any questions till now? I'll give you guys a few minutes so I can grab my drink. Mike or Martijn or Robert, can you let me know if there are any important questions in the chat box?
A couple of people had questions about the recording, and I just want to let everybody know that this is being recorded. You will get the link to it. Yep. And Joel, can you also send out with that the link to the first one? Because a couple of people on here don't have that.
Okay, I've deleted that recording earlier this morning because the thing is, I cannot have more than 1 GB on my cloud in Zoom. Since the last recorded version was something close to, I think, 700 megabytes. I'm not sure about it, but it was, well, I didn't have enough space left for this session. So I deleted that, but it's also going to be posted later on one of my public channels. Okay, so it's not going to be completely lost, all right?
Hello, Joe. Can you hear me? This is Marco Moljaars from the Netherlands.
Hello, Marco.
Hello. Hello.
I can hear you. Yeah. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great, great. Thank you. Can you go back to the Pro Tools? Can you open that in the panel?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you roughly, maybe very shortly, explain again the difference between the normal adjustments and the selective adjustments? Because you told something about the tonal range for selective is different than the normal adjustments, and that has influence on the darkness and on the. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm on mute now.
Okay. Let me try to explain it. Okay. Maybe I have another file, so I'm going to look into my folder, see if I have another file with which I can explain this more easily. So bear with me. Grayscale grid. Okay, let me try to do this. I'm going to open it. You can see my folders, everyone, right?
I can see them. Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. So there we go. All right, let me try to explain this with this grayscale grid. So this grayscale grid represents all tonal values on a grayscale. So from 0, absolute black, to pure white over here, 255. You can see the zones. This is zone 0, this is zone 1, 3, etc., etc. Okay, so I'm going to turn off those things over there. So this here is pure black. This here is pure white. If you use, let's say, the, hold on a minute. If I would select this, let's say this area, okay, then you will see that if I use this, the amplify only, selective adjustments, then it will not have any effect on the pure black, because this will only work if there's any other tonal value other than pure black, 0, 0, 0, or pure white, 255, 255, 255. Okay, so if you click here, you will see that this will not change. So let me go with an L4. The rest will change. You see that? But the pure black will never change. Okay, so this is the effect of selective adjustments. Okay, so if you want to change the pure black, you have to start with this first. You have to give them some tonal value other than pure black. Well, this is too much. Okay, this is too much. L1, for example. You see that?
Yeah, I see.
Now you can use amplify. You see that?
Okay.
So that's the let's say the reasoning behind this. But also, if you look here, if you go with pure white. So
yeah, that will be the other way around. Yeah.
Exactly. So here, I mean, I can click on L4, but the thing is, this is already white, so you don't see any change. But let me try it with D4 over here. So
yeah, it will change to gray. Yeah.
It will not go black. It will always stay white. Yeah. So this has several advantages if you are trying to create mass. Okay, but also when you're trying to adjust images in your photograph, this comes with many advantages. Okay, and that's what I've been trying to show you. So basically, this is add and amplify. So if there's no tonal value there yet that you can change, do this first, and then you can amplify to refine it even more.
Yeah.
All right. Is this clear, everyone?
Thanks. Yeah.
Joel? Yeah. Oh, Joel, this is Toby. I have a question. Are you planning, like on the next like version of your panel, that you have a diagonal button for the restore feature?
Well, maybe. I'm not sure about that yet, because the thing is, up to now, I've never found any reason for myself, at least, to use a diagonal restore. But you know, it's something that we keep in mind, because the thing is, there are already so many buttons over there.
Yeah, sure.
And I like to keep it also clear and tidy, and it should be clear, you know. And too many buttons. And if you do the let's say the diagonals, you already have 4 different buttons, right? And just in one angle. But it's something that we can consider. Yeah, absolutely. It shouldn't be a problem at all.
Okay, cool. Because I've been missing that in the past a little bit. Because then I had to go back to your ISGM method to do that manually.
Okay, if you do it in a very specific way, you can overcome that issue, by the way. Okay. Okay, but and usually if it will play a more important part, that kind of diagonal restore, if you have a very small area. But for that, I have something different, and that's something that I'm going to explain later today. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. So no more questions about the workflow without mask, because then I can continue with the workflow with hard mask. No? Okay. So I'm going to go back over here. So workflow without mask and workflow with hard mask. So again, you start with the neutral conversion, some global adjustments, creating depth, microzone adjustment optionally, and optionally also split toning. So I want you guys to pull up the file that's called Advanced NYC Panel 2 Color Cell BW whatever. that file. Yeah, everyone ready or? Okay, so if you look at the file, you see this a temporary black and white version. If you look at the channels, you see some sky mask, okay, one hard mask. But what I'm going to show in this demonstration is that basically in images like this, you don't always need the let's say the sub mask. For example, you don't need a selection of this, you don't need a selection of that, you don't need a selection of this, etc., etc. You can do with just one hard mask and do everything with it. That's what I'm going to try to show you guys today. Let me see where I have it for a minute. This is not the final version. The final version is not, okay, I forgot to open it. Hold on a second. So let me try to pull up that final version. I think it's this one. All right. Okay, this is the final version. This is the from the New York City skyline. Okay, and we're starting off with. Okay, I'm going to close this first because there are too many screens open. Over here. So we're going to start off with this one. This is the version that you guys have, right? This is the final version. This is the, well, somewhere in between. Okay. Yeah, everyone ready to go? So we have one mask over here. I also have this one, the sky optimized mask. Okay, so don't look at all the halos over there because this is just a temporary version, okay? But what I'm going to demonstrate is that you basically need just one mask to come up with all the other adjustments in the individual buildings. So let me start with loading the sky mask first, and let's say that I like to, well, remove some contrast a little bit more over here. So I'm going to go to global adjustments. So as you've noticed, I've already done a few adjustments in here because I don't want to start from scratch. I just want to start somewhere halfway the process. So I'm going to go with the low key, and instead of going all the way there, I'm just going to go with something like 50%. Okay, apply. All right. So we've darkened the sky a little bit. You can also lighten the water up a little bit more. So that's what I'm going to do. So basically, you can just grab your marquee tool over there and just say something like, let's say something like this. So I'm going to touch the sky there as well. But the thing is, I already have the sky selection, so I can load sky and say, okay, subtract it, right? Then you stay within the edge. So now what I'm going to do is I like to, well, instead of lightening it even more, I'm going to darken it just a little bit more because I don't like the bright reflections over there. So I'm going to go to creating depth, and I can now go from bottom to top. And by the way, I'm going to save this selection first. So call it T1 again. All right, so I can always perform a restore. So you always have to do that. So you can always go back to your previous selection and then perform a restore with. I'm going to go from bottom to top with a, let's say D2. But the thing is, I think it's already dark in here. So I actually want to start over here. So what I'm going to do is just do this, start roughly there. No, it's a little bit too much. Okay, I'm going to go back one step, a little bit less over here. Just want to get rid of that. Something like that. So I'm going to save it again. Save selection, call it T2. So actually I didn't need the T1. Okay, so now I can go from bottom to top and form a D2 with medium coverage. Okay, so that's going to be darker. If you look at the lighter areas, it's still too light. Okay, but now I can form a restore. Let's go with a small first and see if that's already enough. I think it's enough. No, maybe a little bit more. Just another small, something like this. Just look good. No, well, it's too much of a dark line there, so I'm going to do a small then. Okay. This looks much better, right? So I've darkened that part. I can also restore back from top to bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a small, maybe a medium. Okay, I think it doesn't have any effect because it didn't reach up to that point, because it only reached up to the halfway line over there. So this should be good. So here you see that, okay, I've darkened that already a little bit more, and it looks quite good to me. I can always do more adjustments, but it's just to show you that I can do many things with this photo with just one hard mask, and the rest just using artificial hard mask. So let me try to target this building over here, the Gary Building, New York, over there. Okay, knowing that I only have one hard mask for the sky, so how can I just target that one building? Okay, so what I'm going to do is the following. Okay, hold a minute. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, like this. And I'm going to select that building with the marquee tool, and then I'm going to form a few restores. But at the same time, I only want to darken the darker parts of the building and perhaps lighten or maybe toning down the lighter parts in the building. So we have to do a few additional steps. Okay, so looking at this, I want to, let's say, darken those darker areas there a little bit more, and maybe lighten or let's say toning down the lighter parts. So for that, I need to create luminosity mask. You can also do it with the microzone, by the way, but for now I'm just going to play a little bit more with the Pro tools. Okay, so I'm going to create the darks first, because what I want to do is to darken the darker tones a little bit more. So I'm going to create a few darks like this. All right. By the way, in this case, I've created the luminosity mask from this version, okay, from the black and white version. Actually, you can do that, but actually I would always recommend to create them from the original color file over here, okay, because it has a little bit more information. This has already been adjusted. So I need to go back a few steps. Okay, I need to undo this, remove the darks over there. Now stand over here on the background file, the original color file, and now create the darks. Okay, you go to channels, so you see that the luminosity masks have been created. And as you know, light will reveal, dark will conceal, right? So I don't have enough isolation here. I just want to target the really dark areas. So you can see that those represent the lighter values in the image. If you look here, you see that, and that has been protected in dark swan, but I want to have even more isolation for the darker tones. So I'm going to go to darks 2. I can use that. So if you use this, then you see that the lights are even more protected. I can also check darks 3. There will be even more protection, but I think the effect would be a little bit less. So I think I want something in between darks 2, which is a little bit too light to my taste, and darks 3. So I'm going to get rid of those and create the half values, and then go with darks 2.5. Okay, darks over here. Okay, so this is the luminosity mask that I want to use. So I'm going to use this. Again, duplicate channel, so I can easily get rid of the rest of the luminosity mask. like this, okay? Go back here to my latest layer, most recent layer. So what I'm going to do now is to take my marquee tool, okay, but here, you see that it's going to cover that building as well, right? But I can easily fix that with the restore. Here it's a little bit too wide, I think. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to make it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to do this with the subtract with the marquee tool, okay? Oh, that's over here, okay? So I have a margin of something like, that looks like 10%, maybe 15%, okay? So I can use that to perform the restore with. So right now, I'm going to load selection. I have just one mask, that's a sky. I'm going to subtract it already, okay? So now I'm only targeting the building and those buildings, but without the sky, okay? I'm going to save this. Okay, actually I should have saved that here. So I'm going to do that first, save selection. Call it, what was it, T2, I think. Let's make it save and call it T9. T9, okay. Now I'm going to load the sky again, subtract it. All right, now I'm going to use the Pro Tools. So what I'm going to do is deselect it first, create a new layer, Command J or Control J, all right. Reload the selection. Okay, just this one. Then go to load selection again and load darks 2.5 copy, intersect it with this current selection so it stays within this area, like this, all right? So now, again, I would always recommend to start with normal adjustments first, meaning add and amplify to make sure that I also, that I have tonal values all over there that can be amplified with those. So I'm going to start with D2. It's really subtle, okay. D3, okay, I can see it darkening over there already. And now I'm going to finish it off with amplify only. So D3 like this. Do a few more like this. You can see it's really getting dark there. So let me turn it off and show you before and after. You see that? Okay. Now I'm going to fix the edges over there. So load selection, that's called T9. Go from bottom to top. So from bottom to top, I think I'm going to go with small first. Okay, that has been fixed. Like this. Go from left to right and right to left with extra small. So start with left to right first. Okay, let me see if that's already. Okay, let me check it here. Yeah, looks quite subtle and smooth, right? The transition from this building to that building. Okay, I'm going to reload it again. All right, so I'm going to go from right to left now with extra small as well over here. Okay, I think I'm done now. So here, only the Gary building has been affected, right? Can you guys still follow me? I'll give you some time to catch up with me. Any questions in the meantime?
Hey, Joel.
Hello.
Anthony wants to know when you would, if you would specify when you are saving your iterations.
Okay, so this is something that I'm not going to do during the demonstration, but usually and typically what I would always do is to, let's say if I would do, let's say, some adjustments in the sky, I would target, let's say, the top part of the sky, then the mid part of the sky, and then the lower part of the sky by darkening it and then lightening it, etc. And then typically I would save that as one major iteration. Okay, that's merge it down, save it. So basically, I will look at specific planes, specific objects, and I would apply some adjustments to that, and I consider that one iteration, one major iteration that are merged down. This is something that I've explained last week, but it's good to know that I would always break them down, the elements in my image, and let's say sky, water in this case, and then buildings. So if I would do, let's say, all the iterations in here in the Gary building, and so I've only darkened it now, and let's say I'm going to lighten it after this, then I would merge it down and save it as iteration number, whatever number you want to give it to. Correct? Is this clear? So I'm not doing that during the session because I just want to keep the flow going from this demonstration. Is it clear? Okay.
Yep, I think it's probably clear.
We have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Vera asks, how and when do you deal with the halo with the one hard selection? And let me ask the other question as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah's question is already answered about duplicating the layers. So Vera says, when and how do you deal with the halo?
I will always deal with it at the very end of my workflow. So once I'm done, well, I would get rid of those halos, if there are any halos. Of course, in this image, there are plenty of halos. I can give you a short demonstration of that, okay, how I'm going to fix that. But usually, if you do it right from the start, so first of all, if you go prepare your images in Lightroom, for example, make sure you remove the chromatic aberration, because that's always one of the major causes of halos. Remove the chromatic aberration. Don't forget it, okay? And then, of course, it's also a matter of creating the right kind of hard mask. So that's step 2, okay? And then suppose that you already have created the very accurate hard mask. What you can do after that, and actually should do after that, is to feather the edge of the hard mask. That is something that I've, I believe, discussed last week, right? That if I'm correct. So you have to feather it just a little bit. You can also use those options over here. You have to load and optimize mask. So basically, if you have a mask like this, let me try to load this mask, okay? So I can click on this. So basically, okay, before I do that, default is a default, okay? So try to use that one. This will apply to larger selections in the average image size, okay? So this is for smaller images with smaller selections, and this is for really large images with larger selections, like 100 megapixel files. You can also do this manually, by the way, but these are the options that you have, and I would always do something like this. Click on default, click on sky, for example, okay? Now it has been optimized. Now you can save it, save selection, and call it sky better, okay? Like that. So I can show you the difference. Over here, this is sky. This is the original sky mask. Okay, you see that it's a little bit jagged over there, over here, okay? But if you look here at sky better, you see it's much smoother, right? So this is always something that you need to do before you even apply a hard mask. I mean, a hard mask shouldn't have a very hard edge. It should always have this a smoother feathered edge like this. So you can use this, or you can just go do something like this. You can just load the sky mask. So you go to select, load selection, sky, and you can do some feathering yourself by clicking on select and mask over here. And usually what I would say is something between 0.6 and 1.2 pixels. So let's say I would go here typically with 0.9. You can also do that. It's very similar to what I'm doing with the panel, but with the panel I'm also giving it. I'm also shifting the edge. Okay, and I do that to compensate for the let's say for the pixels that are in or outside of the actual edge, to make it a little bit more smooth and subtle. Okay. Any questions about this? Is it clear? So with that, with the optimization and with the removal of chromatic aberration, you can already get rid of a lot of halos. Okay, but the thing is, the perfect mask doesn't exist. So the more you push the contrast in your image, for example, very dark skies, the more you're going to end up with halos. So even if you would create the perfect mask, with the perfect feathering, and you have removed the chromatic aberration, you can still end up with halos. I mean, it's unavoidable if you push the contrast really, really, really hard. Okay, but I would typically do something like this, and then I'm going to continue with my demonstration. Okay, deselect selection. So suppose that I have this halo over here. Okay, let me pick a very simple halo. Okay, this one. You see that? It's I can already avoid that. This is a very old image. Okay, so back then I didn't have the feathering option just yet, so I had to manually correct that. But basically, I would do something like this: Command J, so new layer. You can use a clone tool. Okay, I'm not going to explain how the clone tool really works, but you can do that. For example, okay, hold on a minute. Right. A little bit smaller. Okay, hold on a minute. I'm doing something wrong. I'm working with a different keyboard right now. Okay, so that's something you shouldn't be seeing. All right, that's great, Joel. Okay. So does anyone know on a Windows computer to take a sample? Is it Control or Alt? I forgot it. I usually work on a Mac, but
it's Alt, Joe.
It's Alt. Okay. Okay. I take
Alt
a sample.
click.
Alt click.
Yeah.
Okay. Normal. Yeah, like this. You see that? You have to be really
Here you
careful.
go.
Yeah. Like this. Okay, this is something that you can do, but it takes a lot of time. What you can also do is to just take your smudge tool that's over here. Where's the thing? Smudge tool. Okay. Make it a little bit smaller. Well, I have to say these days I very rarely end up with such big halos. Okay. Let me. Now what I would do then is to just smudge it like this. Okay, you have to, let's say maybe darken a little bit. Okay, but this is a more natural way of getting rid of those halos, because this is also the thing that you would do if you would make a drawing. Then you would smudge the edges or the shadows or whatever you, but you see that? It takes a little while, but I prefer the smudge tool to the clone stamp tool, but this is what you have to do there. But again, yeah, sorry.
If you change the blend mode of your clone tool to darker color, it blends that quite well.
Okay, you can do that too. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so but this is not about getting rid of the halos, but there are several techniques to get rid of that. But the best is just to prevent it by creating a very good mask. Later on in this session, I'm also going to be demonstrating a short masking preview. And I will also refer to one of the YouTube videos made by Ben Harvey, who's also in this meeting. He has created a great video on his YouTube channel. I'm going to share that link later on, about another option for creating your mask, and that's through the Pro Image Editors. Okay, more on that later on when I'm sharing the link. But okay, get rid of the chromatic aberration first. Try to create a good mask, and then also try to feather it. Okay, and if you do that, you can get rid of a lot of halos. So where was I? I was working here with the Gary building. A minute, need to get rid of this. This is before, this is after. Now I'm going to lighten it, so I'm going to use the same principle. So I'm going to get rid of those dark 2.5 copy. I don't need it anymore. So now I'm going to create some lights because I want to increase the light or maybe decrease light. It depends a little bit. So I'm going to have a look at my luminosity mask again. But first I need to create those lights. Again, I'm going to evaluate them one by one. So I'm going to look for the luminosity mask that will give me the most light isolation. So lights 2 looks already quite good. So, but I'm going to have a look at lights 3. Usually I would always skip lights 1 or darks 1. They're not very usable. I would go straight to lights 2 and then further on. So lights 2 looks already good. I think lights 3 gives me even more isolation. Lights 4 even more. I think I'm going to go with lights 4. Okay. Oh, again, I forgot to create them from the original color layer. So I should be doing that. So I'm going to get rid of that. start here, now create them again. Because they're more accurate than the already adjusted layer off of which I create the luminosity mask. So I shouldn't be doing that. So here they are again. So you see it's even more subtle. So in this case, I think I need to have lights 5 or 6. I'm going to go with 5. Yeah, I'm going to go with 5. Duplicate channel. So I'm always looking for the mask with the most isolation for that specific area in my photo. I'll get rid of those. All right. Again, I still have the selection that I already used for the dark luminosity mask. So I'm going to use that. That was called T9. Yeah, that was it. Again, you have to create a new layer. So deselect it first, create new layer because it's all going to be done manually in the Pro Tools section. Reselect it again. And now I'm going to remove the part of the sky by loading the sky. Okay, subtract it like this. And I'm going to load the luminosity mask and intersect it within this specific area. So that's basically the objective of intersection. You always combine two masks together and then isolate them in that specific area. Lights 5, copy, intersect with that. All right. So now I can lighten it or darken it. I think it's actually a little bit too bright. Okay, so I'm going to darken them. So instead of using dark luminosity mask, you still have to use light luminosity mask because you're targeting lighter areas. So even if you want to darken them, you still have to use the light luminosity mask. Okay, so here we go to normal adjustments. So I have to give it some tonal values first because they're pretty light. So I'm going to go with D3. Let me see, it's already a little bit too much, right? It's not looking good. So I'm not going to do that. So go back one step. Okay, over here. I'm going to go with D1. That might be enough. Still too much. Okay. Then go with the selective adjustment. It basically means that there are already tonal values in there. So you don't need to add an amplifier. You can straight go to amplifier. So I'm going to go with this. Spam email. Oh my God. Okay. Go away. Go away. Okay, this is much more subtle. Okay, so do this. Maybe D4. Okay. See that? I hope you guys can see it. That's it. It's a little bit too much down below, but I'm going to fix that. But over here, the brightest areas have been toned down. That's my objective. Okay, I just want to tone down those brighter areas over there, but not so much down here. So I'm going to zoom out, load selection of the T9. Okay, there we go. It's already on top of the last layer without the adjustments. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And now I can go from left to right and right to left first. So that's what I'm going to do. So go to creating that. This. Okay, fix that. This needs more than just small or extra small. And I think I need medium for this part because it's too dark there. Okay, fix that. Okay, maybe a little bit more here as well. So I'm going to go with the medium again. Okay, I think I've done it now. Can you guys follow me? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, this is what you can do with just one hard mask. You can do the same for this building. You can do the same for that building. I mean, you can pretty much do anything with it. Okay. And just using one hard mask. So always be very smart about the mask that you're going to create. You don't need to create a ton of masks. You know, I mean, sometimes it's just sufficient if you just create one hard mask and then use the panel in a very smart way, like I did with the rectangular marquee tool. And basically you can correct anything here. Okay, so I think it's time for a little break. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
Yeah?
Joel, yeah.
Yeah, let's go with a break.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll be back at let's say in 6 minutes. So let's take a break of 6 minutes. All right?
Joel, yeah.
All right.
I'm going to go put the chicken in.
Hello, everyone. I'm back again.
Must have been just a one smoke break, was it, Joel?
It was a very quick one, yeah. Okay, I don't know if everyone is already back again. Mike, Martijn, or Robert, are you guys also back again? Or should I wait a little?
I'm back. Joel, there was one question still from Marvin. He asked if the luminosity masking from the Pro Tools section is pretty much the same thing as your previous software, the Quick Mask Pro.
No, it's not the same. It's based on the same principles, but Quick Mask Pro has a few more things in there that are not available in the Artisan Pro X panel. And basically, what the Quick Mask Pro panel is an automated version of my advanced masking technique. Okay, that is something that I will explain in the advanced masking class. Some more about that later on. But let's get moving now because we're running late again, as usual. Okay, so everyone is back in again.
In.
Yeah.
Please, everybody who can hear you.
Yeah.
After you speak again.
All right. All right. I'm going to start. So we're going to continue with the next topic, which is about the preparations before starting in Photoshop Artisan Pro X panel. Okay, I'm not going to open up my Lightroom application. But basically, the only thing that I do in there is just the removal of achromatic aberration, I sometimes do a perspective correction. I don't do anything else. I don't do any sharpening. I don't do any exposure correction. Well, sometimes if my exposure is completely off, I would do that. But let's say 9 out of 10 times, I wouldn't do that. So basically, it's a perspective correction if needed, the removal of chromatic aberration, and also perhaps a crop, okay? And that's it. And then I'm going to export it as a 300 dpi file, as a 300 dpi TIFF file. And the color space that I would be using is what is it, Profoto RGB. But it doesn't really matter, you know, because I'm still working in black and white and I'm not going to use the colors. But that's basically it. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that part because there are more interesting topics over here. So I want to go into using Artisan Pro X on color images. So I want to show you guys something. Already opened up my file over here. So this is the black and white version of the Flatiron building in New York. As you can see, I've created some depth in black and white, and well, did some adjustments in the sky and the building, created some depth over here. And this here is the original color file. Okay, so the thing is, you can also do this, you can also use the panel on color images like this. But typically, if I work on color images, I would first work in black and white, because then I'm able to see the depth perception even better, because as you know from last week, the human brain will perceive depth only in the colorblind part of the brain. So meaning it's purely a chromatic affair, okay, achromatic affair. And the thing is that it's easier to create depth in your images if you do it in black and white. Of course, at some point you need to go back to color. You can do that very easily. And if you do that, if you're working on a black and white image, to end up with a color result, you have to be careful with the adjustments. You cannot go with a very black sky, for example, because that would turn out completely blue, dark blue, a strange kind of purplish kind of blue. But suppose that I would do it on that I would work on it in black and white first, and I want to go back to color over here. What you do then is just take both files, the original color file, the unadjusted color file, and then go do this. Take the black and white version, duplicate the layer, you go to your original color file over there. So that's on top of the color file over here. Okay, and now I'm going to apply the the perception of depth, the luminance values, to the original color file. The way to do that is just by simply standing over here, set it to luminosity, and now you have the color version of that image. So this is before, this is after. If you want to, you can also, let's say, merge it down, and you can apply even more corrections on your color file using Artisan Pro. It's very easy. But the thing is, of course, you cannot go as extreme as with a black and white image, especially when it comes down to the sky, because the blue will turn out very, very dark. So this is a very simple trick to work with color images. But you can also, again, you can just use the color file like this. So this is already the adjusted color file, and you can do even more adjustments in the photo. The same way that I would do that for black and white photos. Is this clear? I mean, it's a very simple trick. You know, you can go both ways. You can work straight on the color image, or you can go with black and white first, and then go back to color, like I've demonstrated in this photo, and then continue and do some more adjustments with the panel. So suppose that this would be my end result. I can now go to toning and can come up with something. Well, I would click on the split toning generator, for example, because the thing is, the split toning works also very beautifully on color images. So it's not only meant for black and white image. So suppose that I don't like this one. Okay, I'm going to click on it again. Just try to find some random split tone that works quite good on my image. It's almost the same, but you see it works perfectly fine on color images as well. And then if you want to, you can always change the settings over here, go with more lighter or darker tones, whatever you prefer. But the thing is, the split tone generator creates the exact complementary values of any given tone. So it's a split complementary color scheme, and they are quite exact. Okay, so I would suggest if you try to adjust those kind of things, don't play with the hue. Maybe you can play with the saturation, but don't play with the hue. Okay, because it's already the exact split complementary scheme. But just play with the saturation and with lightness. So this is also what you can do with your color photos with this panel. So this is quite easy. It doesn't need any further explanation, I think. Any questions till now about the use of the panel on color images, or the preparation in Lightroom or Capture One or whatever you prefer to use as a raw converter?
Joel,
Okay.
could you just quickly re-look at that trick that you did, the first trick before you used the panel?
Okay, sure. Yeah, go ahead. I will do that. So, okay, basically, this is my original color file, completely unadjusted. I have my final black and white version, which I processed in a very subtle way. So it's not the usual hard contrast like you would see in my pure black and white images. I intended this to be a color photo. So I worked in black and white first, and I kept it all very subtle. What I do then is just duplicate this layer, okay, put it on top of my original color file like this, over here. So now it's on top of my original color file, right? So the only thing you need to do is set it to luminosity over here, because what it does is to keep the luminance values of this layer, but it brings back the color of the background layer. That's what it does, and that's why you see this kind of effect. Is that clear?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Joel.
Okay, I'm going to continue with the other topics, the more interesting topics. So this one.
Sorry, this is Toby. I have another question. How do you deal with hot pixels, or like, because you said you don't do anything else than in
Oh yeah,
Lightroom, but when you, yeah.
I would get rid of that with the clone stamp tool, of course.
With the clone stamp.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm confused about finding the hot pixels. Like when I look at the entire image, do you pan through the entire image with like 200 or 300%, or how do you deal with that?
I would usually do that, yeah. So what I would typically do is then just zoom in the image and just have a quick look at it, you know, and see if I see any kind of distraction that shouldn't be there, like sensor dust marks or whatever, or hot pixels. this is what I usually do, and that should usually be enough. It's just a quick, brief look. And if you end up with some remaining hard pixels, you will always find out, especially if you go to black and white, increase the contrast, you will always see them. But you can also try to locate them by just creating luminosity mask, you know?
Ah, okay, all right.
Yeah. So it's easier to spot them if you do that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
So my next topic, this is a more interesting topic, the increasing or decreasing local contrast with the Pro Tools or microzone or sharpening. So let's do that. I'm going to pull up my Pantheon image files from Rome. So I'm going to open this Photoshop. Sorry. Going to go with this one. These are big files, so it takes a while. Okay, what I have here, okay, let me see if I have the other one. Okay, this is the, okay, this is the final image. I have here the color file with all the selections in it, so I'm going to show you that here. Sky, all the buildings, the, well, different kind of selections over there. I left the older luminosity mask in here. I shouldn't be doing that. Okay, I'll leave them there for now. And I also have this version, that is iteration number 5. The final version was iteration number 23. So I think you can already see a big difference in here. So I haven't shared this file with you guys because this is a limited edition print that's hanging in galleries all over the world. So I couldn't do that. So I'm going to do the demonstration anyway. So I hope you can follow with me. So here, this is the final file. And this is the early iteration. And as you can see here, for example, this part, the tympanum, I think it's called, in the correct architectural terms, the tympanum looks much flatter than this one, right? Because the objective of this image was to, well, the processing objectives of this image were as follows. I wanted to highlight this part of the building, the front part of the Pantheon in Rome. I wanted to increase the details a little bit more because you know that the eyes will always be drawn to the parts of the image with the highest contrast, the highest selective contrast, and the brightest light. So I want to make this lighter with enough detail in there. And this part of the building, if you look here, should be more or less toned down and less distracting. So if you look here, this is iteration number 5, you will see that those lighter patches over here in the building are actually a little bit distracting. The eyes are also going there. And I didn't want that. I want the viewer to be looking at this part of the building only. So I came up with this first. So it's a little bit toned down. I removed the micro contrast, as I call them, and increase the contrast in here and increase the details in there. So again, a comparison, this is before and this is after. Okay, you see the difference. So how can you, if you look at this part, how can you increase the contrast and therefore also increase the perception of detail in that part without using the sharpening tool, but just purely by using the tools in the panel? So first of all, you have to have that selection. So I already have that in this file. So that's called Pantheon. Let's see there. There's a tympanum. I don't know if there are any architects in the room. Is it the right name, tympanum? Anyone?
Pantheon.
Yep. Sorry?
Pantheon.
Pantheon. Okay. Okay. Then I used the wrong word. Okay. Anyway, it's the triangle part of the building. Okay. So I'm going to use that. And as you can see, I always save the hard mask in a separate color file. So you never end up with a working black and white file that's going to be too big and it's going to affect your computer performance. I always save them separately. Okay, so, and if you want, if you have, let's say, if you're trying to create something like 80 masks, knowing that the limit of Photoshop is 57 channels, so basically 53 masks, because they're also going to include the RGB channels, then basically you can just copy this image, the color file, and let's say, and then put, let's say, mask 1 to 40 in this file, 41 to 80 in another file, but always in the original color files and not in the working black and white version. Okay, so you will always keep the performance of your computer up to, well, it will always be unaffected then, or at least less affected than if you put all the channels and also all the layers in just one big file. So here again, this is the number 5 iteration. I want to increase the detail and contrast over here. So if you look here, you see this. Okay, so what I want to do is first to make the lighter areas lighter and then make the darker areas darker. So if you do that, you will end up with something that has much more local contrast and therefore also much more detail. You can do that with the microzone adjustments. Okay, but I'm not going to explain that anymore. So I'm going to do it with Pro Tools again. Okay, so you have a better understanding of this specific feature. So first of all, I'm going to lighten the lighter tones in this area. So that's what I'm going to do, light. Okay, and again, I should have been doing that not from this file, but from the original color file. So that's what I'm going to do here. Lights. Okay, I'm going to evaluate them. So just zoom in. I always go straight to lights 2. If I use lights 2, I would have excluded the darker spots and the darker details in the triangular part of the building. So this could be useful. This lights 3 is too dark. I mean, everything's concealed, so I'm not going to use that. So lights 2 is already better. Lights 3 is too dark. So maybe lights 2.5 would be a better option. So I'm just going to check that. Lights 2.5. I think if you compare lights 2.5 with 2, then I think lights 2.5 might be a little bit more subtle than lights 2. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use lights 2.5 to create more contrast. So lights 2.5, copy that, get rid of the rest like this. So it's in here. And I'm going to combine that with this thing. What's it called? Oh, I forgot the name. The triangular part of the building. So going back here, 5. So I'm going to load that, load selection. That's called this, like that. All right. Now I'm going to load. Okay, before I do that, first, of course, since it's in the Pro Tools, I have to make a new layer like this manually, Control J or Command J. Load selection again, so reselect. And now I'm going to go with load selection of lights 2.5 copy. There it is. Intersected. Okay. Now go with I start with the add and amplify first. See if that's already okay. A little bit more. Okay, let me see before and after. Okay, I have to use L4 because it's really the luminosity is so dark that's going to protect the darker tones in quite a considerable way. So I have to use more light to let's say break through those that protection, so to speak. So I'm going to do this again. All right. All right. You see that? If I zoom in, okay, it's too much zoomed in, but this before, this is after. It's going to lighten those lighter parts. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more with L4 amplify only. So it will not add more white to this specific area, but it's just going to amplify the already existing white values in there. Okay. Okay. Before, after. Okay, it's already a big change. Okay, so but that's step one. Now I need to darken the darker tones. So I'm going to deselect selection. I'm going to create, I'm going to go back to my color file. Okay, now I'm going to create a dark luminosity mask. And then again, I'm going to evaluate them. Let me also create the half values over there. Okay, go straight to darks. Over here, start with darks 2. Okay, this is much too wide. You see that almost everything will be affected in the image, including the lighter areas. So I'm going to look for a much darker version. So here you see that's already much more isolation. You see that the darker details there, the scratches, the holes, all the other details that are darker are going to be lighter, meaning they're going to be shown, and the rest is dark. But I'm still not satisfied yet, so I'm going to look at darks 5. I think this is even better, right? I mean, there's even more isolation in here. So compared, if you compare those two things, darks 4 and darks 5, I think darks 5 gives much more isolation. Also, the letters here will also be affected and will also be darkened, so the perception of increased contrast and detail will be even higher and even better. So I'm going to use darks 5. Copy that. Get rid of the rest. All right. So there it is. Going back to my black and white version. Okay, new layer. Command J, Control J. Node selection from my original color file over there. Then go to this one. And again, load selection of the luminosity mask called darks 5 copy, intersected with selection. Okay, now we can darken those. I'm going to start off with add and amplify with D1. See what happens. Okay, you can already see that it's already dark, a little bit darker, right? So the thing is, I'm going to go with D2 now, but I'm afraid this part is going to be too dark. So let me see what I can do. Okay, and now I'm going to amplify only. Okay, let me see. It's before and after. Okay, maybe it needs a little bit of correction over there. So what I'm going to do is to, let's say, if I use this as a restore, then might not be so good. So, but I'm going to restore it anyway. Let's do, sorry, that's this one. Okay, just a small restore from top to bottom. This one. Okay, perhaps there are some pixels outside of the selection because I don't see much of a change. So I need to check that first. Okay, go back here. It's this one. And again, I can fix it quite easily. So here, what I'm going to do is just, okay, you see that? There's this white thing over there. It shouldn't be there. That's why it doesn't detect it correctly. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to add that. Just try to cover everything. Like this. I mean, as long as you stay away from the edge, you don't have to be very accurate. Okay, so this, if I do this, it's a little bit too much over here, I think. Okay, I think I need to get rid of that a little bit. Well, let me see. It's just about, okay, I'm just going to leave it like that and I'll click on Pro Tools, D4 Pure Black. Okay, now it's gone. You select, all right. So now it has been fixed. Go back to my working file and again, go to load selection. That's called this, all right. Now I'm going to perform a restore. Just a little bit. Okay, that's enough. You see that? That's the difference. This is before, this is after. I find it a little bit too dark there. Maybe just a little bit more. Let's go with a small. Okay. All right. So this is what I've done. So now I've basically increased the contrast and detail. So this is before, without any light adjustments and without any dark adjustments. And this with everything in there. You see that the perception of depth and detail is much more enhanced. So without any sharpening, but using the, let's say, the available tools that are in the panel in a smart way, basically, to create a better perception of depth and detail. Is this clear till now? Any questions for now?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to show you before and after. So this is before. It's much flatter. This is after. So you don't, basically, you don't need to sharpen your images all the time. Hold on a minute. I'm going to grab a drink because my throat's a little bit dry. So excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, okay, so that's part one. So now what I want to do, so I'm going to merge it down. All right. Now I'm going to have a look at this part of the image. So the thing is, okay, you guys can see this kind of stuff. Go away. So what I want to do is to basically remove the contrast in this area. So the eyes will not be, let's say, moving towards this part of the building. That's still important, but I think this should be more important. I want to come up with something that's more like this, like in the final version, where you can see that it's still visible, but not as distracting as in this version. Okay, so this is before, and this is after. I hope you can see the difference, right? This is much more contrasty and a little bit too distracting, while this isn't. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Again, I'm going to go back to my color file over here. And in this case, I'm going to create a light luminosity mask because I want to make the lighter parts darker. Okay, so I'm going to remove the contrast. So I'm going to go with Pro Tools again, create the lights. Let me also create the half values over there. So now I'm going to go straight to lights 2. And I'm going to see if that's going to work for me. So zoom in here, like this. Okay, lights 1 is always too light. It will affect the entire part of that part of the building. So lights 2 should be better, but I'm going to check lights 1.5, see if that's, okay, that's still too light. So lights 1.5 is too light. Lights 2 is, I think, the right one to target that part of the building. So I'm going to use lights 2. By the way, any questions about how I evaluate luminosity mask? Is that also clear? Anyone?
Yeah, if you could just go over that again.
You want me to repeat it again?
Yeah, just the high points of how you look at the mask and know which one is the one that's going to give you, because I keep somehow getting confused between if the mask is light or dark, or whether the desired outcome and how they differ.
Okay, so let me try to repeat it again. So first of all, you know, if you look at this color file, and the objective again is to remove the contrast in that part of the building. So if you look at this part, if you look at this part only, you will see that this is lighter relative to this, right? I mean, if you look at this part of the building only, then this is a lighter part than that. So basically, if that's the case, you have to look at the light luminosity mask, okay? Even if you want to darken it. So it's always looking at specific area in your image and compare that with the adjacent parts of the image that you want to affect. Okay, so based on that, you decide if it's lighter or darker. If it's lighter, okay, and you want to lighten or darken it, you go with light luminosity mask. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah, even if you want to darken it, you go with light. Okay, so here, this part is lighter, so I have to create the light luminosity mask. So I've already done that. So then I go back here and evaluate those masks. Lights one's usually not usable. Okay, so I went straight to lights 2. That looked pretty good to me. So, but to be sure, I also had a look at lights 1.5 because 1 is too light, and I think lights 1.5 is also too light because it will affect everything in here. So I have to go with lights 2, even though it looks very dark. But the isolation of those white patches that you see here in the building is quite optimal, right? You will only affect those parts in the building. So that's why I'm using lights 2 to darken it. Okay, is that still clear?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, so I'm going to use lights 2. So I'm going to duplicate that channel. I'm going to get rid of all the redundant channels, okay? And I'm going to use it with this hard mask. But actually, I don't even have to use a hard mask, okay? So basically, I have a hard mask of that. Where is it? It's somewhere over here. I think it's this part. So I could use this hard mask, but I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm just going to create a random artificial hard mask. So I'm going to go back here. All right. I'm now going to say, okay, I want to affect roughly this area. Okay. Now maybe a little bit wider. So let me go a little bit wider. So you see that I often use the rectangular marquee tool. So this part, okay? So I'm going to save it because I need to be able to restore it. So I have to save it. What was it? TX, whatever. TX. Okay, deselected. First of all, I have to create a new layer manually because I'm working in the Pro Tools like this. Okay, load selection. TX, okay. Load selection again. Now going to my color file over there and go with what's it? Lights to copy. What was it? Now I forgot. Lights to copy to or to copy. I think it was this one. This one. Okay. So I'm going to intersect that like this. Okay. And now I'm going to zoom in like this. Oh, a little bit too much. And again, I'm starting with the add and amplify. So let me start in a subtle way with D2. Okay, you see that this will be, okay, I forgot one thing. I forgot to load the sky and to get rid of that part of the sky. So I need to do that too. Sky, okay, now subtract that. So I'm not going to affect the sky. I don't need to worry about that, like this. Okay, so subtract it. Again, I'm going to go with D2. Okay. See that? A little bit more with D3. I can still restore that later on, so that's not a problem. But you can already see the difference, right? So now I'm going to finish it up with amplify only with D3. Okay, something like that. All right. So now I'm going to restore because this doesn't look good. So I'm going to go with TX. All right. I'm going to restore from this edge and from that edge because this is already has already been subtracted, so I don't need to worry about that. Okay. I'm also going to do it from here. So left, right, right, left, and bottom, top. Creating depth. So let's start with the extra small from bottom to top. Okay. let's go with extra small from left to right. Okay, and now from right to left. Okay. Okay, a little bit more from right to left. Okay, like that, because I only want to darken that. But I hope you guys see that what happened here, right? I mean, I removed the contrast in a very subtle way, just to lead the eye even more to this part of the photo with the triangular part of the building. Is this clear? Anyone?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah?
Yes, Joel.
Yes.
Perfectly clear.
Okay.
Yes, very clear.
All right. So, okay, before we go on with the next topic, and the next topic is, I've got it. Oh yeah, the special effects. Okay, the thing that I find very interesting. So no more questions about all the previous topics?
Sorry, Joel, a small question from me, Marco Maljaars from the Netherlands.
Hello, Marco.
Hello. Regarding the ghosting of the people in front of the image, I can imagine that with your tool, it would be quite a big challenge to get the details back, because if I look at the final image, there is more detail in the ghosting.
Yeah.
In this particular case, would you go for locally dodging and burning, or with your new panel, would you go also with the possibilities the new panel can?
Yeah, that's a great question, Marco, because it's a perfect bridge to my next topic, which is special effects.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
Okay.
So okay, we're talking about special effects. Okay, so this is the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a minute. Oh, there we go. So special effects for controlling intricate details when masking isn't possible. So let me start with something like this, with this photo. So usually, what I would like to do with stuff like that, and before I had the panel, I would create luminosity mask. I would use my brush. I would brush it in, and had to do it in a very let's say specific way to make sure that the blending and the brushing looks quite natural. It's quite a bit of work. These days you can do it completely different. Okay, what you can do now is go to special effects. So let's say I want to highlight those, the ghosting. So first, what I would do is say, okay, let me darken that a little bit. So I'm going to use my marquee tool. Very simple. Okay, a little bit too large, I think. Okay, make it a little bit smaller, like this. So now we'd go with creating depth from bottom to top and make it a little bit darker. Let's say with I think a large D2 would do well. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, something like this. Okay, and then I would, okay, I don't need to restore it from top to bottom because this is not affected, this edge, it goes from bottom to top. So this will be always good. So if you look here, it's already darker. Okay, and if I go into deselect, you see that it looks much better, right? So now how do you do this? You can use your dodge and burn tool, the old-fashioned way, but you have this now, special effects. So what you can do is the following. You can say, okay, what you have to do is you grab your marquee tool again and do something like this. Okay, roughly the length of this ghosting part. Okay, and it always needs to be a little bit longer and wider than the actual target area. Okay, don't forget about that. So here I can say, I'm going to go with a horizontal, of course, because it's a horizontal marquee selection. I'm going to go with this and see that it's going to create something that's a light effect. Okay, now what I can do is what I always do is to do a few corrections to make it even more subtle with the small, and from left to right, and from right to left, and top to bottom, and bottom to top. Okay, so now it looks even more subtle. And now I can right click it. Okay, free transform. I can put it right there if I want to. Okay, it doesn't have the same kind of shape, right? So what I can do, instead of doing that, I can go to edit, transform. I can go to warp, Okay. So now what I can do is choose one of those presets over here. Let's say I'm going to go with a sort of a wave kind of thing or flag kind of thing. Let me try the wave thing. Okay. So I'm going to, let's say, try to make the movement more natural in this lighting effect. So I'm going to do it a little bit like that. Something like that. I'm going to click on that. And now we have something that looks like this, and you can also increase, decrease that. See that? So this is before, this is after. I can repeat that. I can just stand on that transparent layer, duplicate that. I can increase the effect, the intensity, or I can just go here, say free transform, and then move it a little bit that way. Okay. And now, let's say that I would be happy with this. And again, I can do it like this with the opacity slider. Very easy, isn't it? So, and what I would usually do then is to group them together in a group from layers, call it, let's say, SFX, all right? Because the thing is, you cannot do the other adjustments on top of a transparent layer. So that's why I've always grouped them together, so I can turn them on and off. So if I want to work here, for example, on the rest of the building, using the normal adjustments, I have to stand here, not on this, okay? But this is easy, isn't it? So that's one application of that special effects tool. In the past, when I was working on this image, that was 6 years ago, I would select all the pillars over here, the columns over here separately, and then create a light to dark or dark to light transition separately per column. Now I don't have to do that. What I can do now is just say, okay, I'm going to turn this off for now. Just going to grab something like this. Now I'm saying vertical, let's use L2, okay. Okay, now I can move it right where I want it to be. Let's say, okay, let's go here. Okay, something like this, a little bit to the right, sorry, to the left. And I think that's looking good. And now you have there one effect. You see that? If you think it's too dark, just duplicate that layer. It will be increase in intensity. You see that? I can also merge them down, and now I can just do this. You can change the opacity now, or and the transparency of it. Okay. You can also create shadows like this. I would create another one again. So I would go special effects now with dark. Let's see, dark 2. Okay. Always do a few corrections like this, like this, like that. And now right click, free transform, move it over there. All right, something like this. Okay, you have to be a little bit more accurate, but there it is. Okay, so now basically you have created a depth perception and all those separate columns like this. And basically you can do now something like this, Command J while setting that layer. So now you have a copy of that over here. And what you do then is going to add it, free transform, and then put it on another pillar over there. Oh, let's take this one. Saves you a lot of work, you know. You see that? That has to be darker and lighter at the same time, so I'm going to duplicate that. So you could do that. Of course, you need to be a little bit more accurate, but you can save yourself a lot of work just by using the special effects tool. Is it clear up to now?
It's clear, Joel. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have questions about this part? Before I show you something?
Can you always do the restore feature even now? Like,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So you have to reselect, and then you do the restore.
Yeah. Suppose that I had a selection of this part, but I don't have a selection. Let me check it. Let me check it.
No,
okay.
I'm talking about the one you just did. Like, let's for example, if you go back to your image.
Yeah. Where is it? Hold on a minute. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Yeah.
If now you want to do a restore on the darkening special FX thing that you did on the second column of to the left.
Okay. Let me. Okay. Hold on a minute. Let me try to do a restore over here. Right. This one.
Yeah.
No, no, not this one, but sorry, this one. This one. Okay, suppose that it has bled over the edge a little bit over here and there. What you can do now is very simple. You can do this. You don't have to use the original. Sorry, it's not good enough. A little bit like this. Make sure you take the widest width of the column like this. And now basically you can now go with the restore from. And by the way, notice that under special effects, you don't have the extra small because it's unnecessary over there. Okay, you only have small and that's it. So I can now go with, let's say, with the restore. Okay, I have to be a little bit wider, like this. Take a little bit off of that part there. Let's say go with that, and I can go with the small, for example. You can still do restore like this, as long as you're right on top of the last layer. And if you have multiple transparent layers over here, it doesn't matter. You can leave it right there. But as long as the last layer, that's not a transparent layer, is right underneath the target layer that you want to adjust. And
oh, that's really cool. That opens a whole new universe for working on images. Very cool. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to do a more advanced application of that with. Let me see. Where's that photo? I think I have to open it. Okay, it's not this one. I'm going to open up another photo that is. Where is it now? The Erasmus Bridge, where is that thing? Oh, there it is. Okay. Open with. Okay, no, not this one. Sorry about that. I have another image, and that is. Okay, guys, you want to take a few minutes break because I have to look it up, okay? Because I thought I had it here, over here. Just take a break because I have to grab myself a drink as well because my throat's completely dried out. It's it's like leather. So
sounds good, Joel.
I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay.
All right.
John, do you want to ask the question here in the channel because I didn't really understand what you meant, but maybe someone else did. Does.
Yeah, when you look in the channels panel, and if you go to the little hamburger symbol up above there, the 3 lines, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, there's
sorry, yeah, I'm back.
There's options, panel options when you're in the channel panel. And if you go to the either right click on the mask or go to the 3 little bars and click on it, you'll see panel options.
Yeah.
And either that should be set to mask area or selected area.
I only have thumbnail size, but that's pretty much what you want. The easiest way to work, what I like, is to have to keep it in the black and white. If you do the masked area.
Yeah, if I open up my Photoshop here, maybe I can.
No, it's panel options, not panel options.
Panel options.
Channel
panel
options
is what it's called. Channel options, and you have 3 options to choose from: masked area, selected area, spot color. And last week there was confusion because some people were using the wrong area. Some are using mask area, and so under Luminosity mask.
Yeah, the best way is to use is to keep it on the mask areas.
The mask area.
If you turn it around, if you click on select areas, you see also that the channel has been, the mask has been turned around. White becomes black, black becomes white.
Yeah, and there was some confusion last week. Somebody had that mixed up when they were using
That's what I saw in the video, indeed.
Yeah, I think in the advanced
You should
adjustments,
keep the channel options on the mask areas. That way the luminosity masks, as you see them, when they are created, remain the same as what you select.
Yeah.
Sorry guys to interrupt, but I'm going to continue with this session, okay? So please try to keep it off chat, offline. So I'm going to start with this image. Can you please mute your microphones?
Everybody's muted.
Special effects that I really want to highlight is this image. So the thing is, this is the original image. What I've been doing is to send this off to pro image editors in India and have them create the masks for this image, like this. It is super accurate. So they did a really great job with it. But the thing is, the selections are so detailed and so small that, and so accurate, but no matter how accurate they are, it's impossible to create the lighting effects that I had in mind. Because if you look at this, for example, over here, you'll see that this would be roughly something like, well, 7 pixels, 9 pixels wide, right? If you try to apply a specific effect in those separate cables, it's going to be impossible, especially when they are in a specific angle, right? So even though they've created those super accurate selections for me, I couldn't use it to come up with something like this. So here, what you see here is that I've been doing all those things, all those effects that you see here, the intricate light to dark and dark to light effects over here. Okay, hold on a minute. So why doesn't it, okay, that way. I don't know why I cannot scroll anymore. There's something happening with my computer. Okay, zoom in again. Okay, I can scroll again. So if you look here, these cables are, I can show you if I do this, 4 pixels wide, but there's still dark, light, dark transition over there. On top of that, you see that the intersecting cables over here, well, you see that there's even a shadow underneath there. So this is all zoomed in at 300%. If you try to do this manually, even with the hard selection that I received from Pi in India, I couldn't achieve this, because what you get if you try to do that, if you, let's say, don't do it this way, but let's say would select that selection, color there. Let's go with the cables below there. I mean, suppose that I'm going to lighten it from that direction and darken from that direction. You will see something like this. Okay, let me try and do that. Something like, okay, I'm going to do a few iterations. I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit so you can see it even better. Okay, we'll turn it off. You will see something like that. If you look here, you will see that those cables are not, well, they're not separate cables anymore, right? It's just bright. Over here, you see the same kind of things, you know? So it's impossible actually to create, let's say, individual depth per cable strand. Okay, you cannot do that. You could consider to, let's say, come up with a separate selection of those cables, but that would still be a lot of work, right? I mean, imagine trying to break it down, this selection, and to come up with a separate selection of each cable. That is already quite a bit of work. And still you cannot get the effect that I have created in this image. So I'm going to get rid of those, okay? Because the thing is, it's not going to work like that. So what I've basically done is the following. I created separate selections like this. So I would go with something like, for example, if I look here, let's say I want to target this cable. Okay, so I'm going to grab my marquee tool there. I'm just going to zoom in. And then I'm going to have a look here and see how wide it is. Roughly 8 to 9 pixels. let's say 9 pixels. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider, because if you're going to create the effect, it always needs to be a little bit wider. Okay, but also notice this, the cable isn't entirely straight, it's sagging a little bit. So if you are able to do this manually with the manual selection, so you would be able to, let's say, select this cable, then how are you going to put in the reflected gradient effect in there? Because the cable is not straight, it's sagging. So you can never add that specific manual reflection in there manually. So the only way to do that is to do this. So I'm going to create a selection like this, roughly not 16, a little bit wider than the original width, which is, let's say, 12 pixels. Now I'm going to create special effects. It's vertical, I'm going to go with L2. Okay, so now I'm going to correct it a little bit, make it a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller. Okay, and now I can do the following. I can go here again, edit, free transform, and I can go with, okay, hold on a minute, where's that? Okay, I need to undo it, edit, transform, and warp. That's what I need to do. So it's in the right direction already. So I only need to, okay, that's not the right one. Hold on a minute. I'm a little bit messing it up. I have to go with the arch there. Okay, and it's in the wrong direction, so I need to click on this. Okay, so now I can give it the shape of the cable, a little bit bent. You see that? It's not entirely straight. So now I click on that, and now click Edit, Free Transform, and now I can put it on that cable that has a little bit of a curve in it. Okay, so the first time it's always a little bit more work, because you have to put it on the cable first. Okay, like this. So I'm going to have a look at that, and I'm going to put it right there. I just look at those anchor points there in the middle. That's also almost in the middle, just a little bit of a rotation over there. Okay, now use my arrow keys to move it down. Okay, let's say this, and you have that thing over there. Okay, so now I have that effect. What I can do now is to just stand on that transparent layer, Command J, you can intensify that, and now you can move it all the way that way, and then just connect them together, zoom in a little bit. Okay, I think it's not going to be too accurate today, but now I have 2 of them. I can create a third one like this. Okay, again, I put them over there. So you see, I wasn't too accurate enough. So, but it's just a demonstration. But okay, I'm going to put them right there. I need to rotate it just a little bit, like that. Put it on there. Okay, now I have this section of 3, and what I can do now is say, okay, this part needs to be darker, this needs to be darker, this needs to be lighter. So what I do is just stand on here, this is the top part, just do this. Okay, go to the bottom part, do that. Okay, and I want to increase intensity in this midsection, I just stand on that, duplicate it. And now I have that effect. And now I can basically say, okay, I can use this for the other cables as well. So group them together, group them layers. Call it, let's say, cable 1. Okay, and now I can just duplicate that, Command J. Okay, do this, pre-transform, then put it on, let's say, the other cable. And you can continue like this. It's really easy, isn't it? Any questions till now?
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
amazing, Joel. Fantastic.
That's brilliant, Joel.
Yeah. And so basically, I would always recommend using the special effects tool whenever the selections are too small. So anything beneath, let's say, a width or length of, let's say, 50 pixels, you shouldn't actually be creating hard masks from, okay? Because that's not going to work. It's going to be too small. It's going to be too detailed that you cannot even apply a normal effect anymore. In that case, anything that's smaller than 50 pixels, I would always recommend use special effects tool. On top of that, you don't have to create the mask anymore. You can be even more accurate than with a mask. So let's say that I've done all the work already, of course. So here I have this and this and this and this and that. You can see them here. So how do I do this, for example? Create those, the shadow kind of thing that you see here, that the line going across that cable instead of going straight through it. So what you need to do is okay, I have to look it up right now. So I have to have that cable over there. So this is, let's say, cable number, I think it was this one. Yeah. So you see, I've grouped them together per cable group. So this is the right one. I'm going to find the other one. That's the, so you have to have some sort of structure over there as well. So I need to have, let's say I'm going to target, let's say this one, okay. This one, that is going to be number, not that, this one. Okay, I'm going to turn them all off. I'm going to turn that on. Sorry. I'm going to, need to have this one. Okay, that one. I'm going to use this one. I'm going to turn them all off so you can see it better. So this and that. So this one is, okay, I need to have that one. All right, this one, because this one is the other cable, I think. That's that one. So I'm going to use this one. So if you apply the effect, because I'm going to do it again, I'm going to create an effect over here. So let's say this. I'm just going to do it on top of that. I'm going to create an L2 vertical. Okay, let's say I'm going to move it right there. Not too accurate, but it's not needed right now. Let's say something like this. You see? Then you see that it's going to create a highlight of here that's unwanted. That doesn't look natural, right? So basically what you have to do there is just stand on here and then follow the direction of this. So you take your eraser tool that is over, where is that thing now? Oh, there it is, okay. There's the eraser tool, just click on it. And now you just go over the other, a little bit smaller, like 4 pixels. Okay, hold on a minute. It's set to brush 100%. This needs to be over that. Okay. See, you can just erase it like that. Hope you guys saw that. Right? You see that? Yeah. That's what you need to do on those intersections. So you can create the illusion of depth and that cable's indeed on top of that other cable. It's really easy, isn't it? You just have to identify the 2 intersecting cables and then stand on the one that's lying below that cable, stand on that, and then just use the eraser tool and then just erase it out. You can even do it very quickly like that. You know, it's as long as you have as long as you're standing on the right kind of layer. Any questions? Because this is quite exciting, I think. You know, I mean, you can do so many things with this with special effects tool that were previously actually almost impossible to do. And you can have a level of accuracy that is really, really, really high. I mean, look at this again. So I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to turn them all on. All on like that, and you see that it's over here. I'm going to go to the top part of the image. This is, what is it, 300%. I'm going to go to 400%, zoom in. And see all the cables are separated over there. They're just, I think, 3 pixels wide. I'm not sure, let's say, well, 3, 4 pixels wide. You cannot do this manually, you can't, okay? So this is what you can do with the special effects tool. All right, any questions?
No, it's just really amazing. The level of detail is just amazing.
It is a level of detail that was previously impossible, you know, or if you were willing to work for an entire year on just one image, you could do that, you know, but I wouldn't be that dedicated, you know, I wouldn't do that.
Exactly, yeah, with your previous really old image from the Erasmusbrug, like there, you did it all manually, right?
Yeah, that was manually, yeah. But with this, I couldn't do that. So I had to find a new way, and the new way is using the special effects tool in this panel. And that's basically it. All right, so I think I've come to the end of the normal session. So, oh, by the way, one gimmick, okay? So if you're into that, suppose that you like to have some streaks of clouds in the sky, you can do that. You can just click on that. All right, you can say, okay, hold on a minute. I'm going to make it a little bit subtle, like that, like that, like that. Okay, and I'm going to free transform, do that, and say, okay, here we go. The lighting effect should be somewhere over there, more or less. Okay, click OK. Now I'm going to load the selection of the cables. That's in the other file. Cable stop, okay. Right, and now I'm going to restore from bottom to top, top to bottom, left to right with large. And now you will see that that cloud's behind the cables there. Looks pretty nice, right?
Yeah.
It's a stupid gimmick. I wouldn't do that, you know, because, but if you're into it, feel free to do so. It's really easy to come up with something like that. You can also make it a little bit more subtle. Okay, I can do that. All right, there's a streak of clouds, so long exposure image. Any questions, anyone?
Good, very good.
Yeah. All right, so I have one thing left, and that is the a quick demonstration of the masking technique that I'm going to be using in the advanced masking class. So what it consists of is of the following. I will show you that. Usually if you have an image like this, it's going to be really difficult to select it, because the thing is, if you, let's say, if you would use the conventional technique with selecting one of the color channels like this.
Joel, your screen is not showing.
Oh God, yeah, sorry. It's, let me see that again. There we go. Right. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
So usually with an image like this, if you would have, you want to make a selection, you would always use the, let's say, one of the color channels, red, green, or blue. In this case, I copied the blue, and then typically what they would do is go to image adjustment levels, and then I would push the sliders that way, you know, that way, a little bit that way, that way. But the thing is, here it's already getting dark, right? And here it's still light. So there's no way to find something that will also, let's say, mask this out, right? I mean, it's almost impossible. You can go with your Dodge and Burn tool over it, but there's another way, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate in the advanced masking class. What you do is create luminosity masks and use them as additional channels next to the RGB channels. What you then do is split up the image in sections. This is section 1 to be used with light luminosity mask 5. This is number 2. This is number 3 to be used with light luminosity mask number 3.5. Section 4, section 5. And what you do then, so after that analysis, I'm going to explain that in depth during the advanced masking class. What you do then is create a new alpha channel. Okay, you always need to start from white. Okay, so now you load, let's say, section 1. Load selection. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go with, yeah, let me do section 1 first. So load selection, stand on the alpha channel. Section 1 to be used with luminosity mask 5. So load section 1. Okay, load light luminosity mask number 5 over there, intersected. Okay, now you go to Pro Tools, add and amplify, starting off with D4. Okay, now it's going to go with a D3, a little bit more. Now finish it off with D4 there. Okay, and now I'm going to load the mask and mask. So load that section. Okay, that. And I'm going to load that alpha channel inside this part. Alpha 1. And now intersect with selection. Okay, and now click on L4 to correct it in here. So if there's anything bleeding over the edge there, it will be corrected like this. So now you have part 1 of the mask. Okay, I need to make this a little bit darker there. See that? So I'm going to load selection again. This number, what was it? 1? Yeah, 1. That. Was it 1? Yeah, section 1. Okay. So load selection 1. Okay, to be loaded in combination with L5. Intersected there. And I'm going to finish it off. And I'm going to use the amplifier only, because else if you use the add and amplify, it will bleed into the building. So I'm going to use this. See? So I've done part 1. Now I can continue with section 2, 3, 4, 5, and have the entire building in just one go. With let's say with one alpha channel, but with was it 5 different sections. So let me do this now, that part. So I'm going to find section 4, I think it's 5. So section 5. So here, I'm going to finish off that mask and on this side of the photo. So I'm going to load section 5 like this. Load selection that was to be used with luminosity mask 3.5. There it is. Intersect. Do this. Okay, you see this. Start here. Okay, so there. And now I think it's still not bleeding, so I can go on with this. As long as it's not bleeding off the edge, I'm okay with it. Okay, so here it is. So this is already, let me see, I had, okay, this is enough. So now I'm going to grab my key tool, subtract, because this is already good. Okay, right. And now I'm going to continue with this for the top part of that. You see that? And now, okay, if I've done that, I can do the rest. Then I have my mask, and I will show you the accuracy of that. Okay, it's not finished yet here. I need to finish it off. But you see something like this kind of accuracy with in the cables. See that? You cannot do this manually. So let me try to finish that off. So load selection. Okay, I'm not going to do this only. So this part. All right. I'm going to load that together with that was 3.5. Intersected, there we go. And then finish it off with this. See that? The cables are still there. I still need to fix this, but let's do it with this. So that's a short demonstration of what I'm going to discuss in the advanced masking class in May. So if you're interested, send me an email, and then I will go through this process in detail. But this is how it works. Any questions about this part? Do you think it's an interesting part or not?
I think it's an integral part.
Okay, thank you.
It's fascinating, but what in comparison to your Pro Mask extension that you also have made?
Okay, the Quick Mask Pro tool, this one.
Exactly. Yeah.
This one is basically what it does behind the screen is exactly this. But since I do it manually, you can even be more accurate about it, because the thing is, it assumes that this masking pro panel, it assumes a few things. Okay, but if I do it myself, I can choose all the right kind of mask. But the Quick Mask Pro panel does all this behind the screen, but it makes a few assumptions because there's no artificial intelligence in there. So I had to make a few assumptions. But if you do it manually, you can combine this with the color range feature tool and with the pen tool as well. And that's what I'm going to discuss in the advanced masking class. So it goes further than just this technique, because I'm going to put it in a all-encompassing method that gives you structure to any kind of masking issue that you want to tackle. Okay.
So does the Pro Tools Luminosity mask is it equal to the base mask in Quick Mask Pro?
No, it isn't. It is something different. The base mask is even more intelligent. Okay.
Okay, so if I was going to use one, would you recommend the base mask instead of the luminosity mask?
Well, the thing is, if you have this panel, you can use this panel, of course. You can use a base mask. But if you know how to do it manually, and really, this is not something that I can explain in just 1 hour. This was just a quick demonstration, because I'm going to combine different techniques together. But if you can do it manually, you can do it even better. You can basically tackle any kind of issue. Because it's not only this technique that's behind the Quick Mask Pro panel that I'll be demonstrating in the advanced masking class. It's also a sort of procedure that will combine this technique, the advanced masking technique, together with the color range feature and the pen tool, and put them all together in one big workflow. So you should be able to tackle any kind of issue you're confronted with, you know.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, so guys, this was it. It's already late, really late. Again, 3 hours. Any questions? But before I let you ask questions, I want to share this screen with you. So can you still see my screen or not?
No. Yes.
No. Yes?
We see all the attendance.
Okay, so there are a few things that I want to share with you. That's the some links. Okay, I put it in the chat box.
Just give it a minute and I'll come and help you do all that, yeah?
Okay, hold on a minute. I'm going to go down a little bit. Why doesn't it work? Oh, there it is. So there's this is my YouTube channel with the video tutorials. Okay, there's also the Ben Harvey YouTube channel with the video on the Artisan Pro X panel, and also on the outsourcing masking. If you want to know more about the Artisan Pro panel, including the in-depth artistic approach in the field and in post-production, then you can buy my video tutorial over here. I'm going to share all this here in the chat box, okay? But it's especially worth looking at Ben Harvey's YouTube channel, because it's quite good, I think. I'm going to put it in the chat box. Where's that chat box? Okay, where's that thing?
At the very bottom.
At the very bottom. Okay, I've completely lost it. Hold on a minute.
Next to manage participants.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay, I put it in there. Okay. All right. I don't see the chat box. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, so there's the tutorials with the links. You can just click on it and you can go there. All right, guys, I think I'm at the end. I think, hold on a minute. I'm going to unshare the screen, stop share. Going to turn on my.
I don't see the links in the chat box.
I think they're in there, right or not? If you just copy and paste that, you should be able to.
It's not in the to everyone box.
Oh, it's private.
Make sure it's to everyone.
Okay, hold on a minute. How do I fix that?
I don't see either.
Click on the type message here and then just press Apple V.
Everyone publicly. Okay. Right, this one. Can you guys see it? No?
No.
Not yet. Make sure it says to everyone.
Why does it show this stupid thing?
If you,
oh yeah, I see it now. Okay, there it is. Yeah?
Yes.
All right. There we go.
Yes.
All right. Yep. So, I'm tired, guys.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Joel.
Yeah, that was great, Joel. Really good.
Any questions left?
Thousands, but let's not start.
That's a big thank you for doing this for free to us. That was really inspiring. Thank you, Joel.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Joel. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Joel. That was great.
Okay, thank you too.
When will you be sending out the invitations to the paid?
Okay, what I'm going to do is first set up the class that's going to be held at around the end of May. So everyone who has sent me an email will get the first invitation, and after that I'm going to put it up on the website. But everyone who has sent me an email to be put on the list will get the first chance to sign up.
Okay.
Okay.
Joe, this is Jorge. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Joe, what level is the masking class going to be? Are you going to start from beginner all the way to advanced, or how do we prepare to maximize the benefit of that? I'm really interested, but I don't want to end up not being able to follow.
Okay, let me think about that. Okay, so I'm going to set it up, and then I'm going to, well, send an email with the let's say with the entry level.
And then I understand you're going to cover a method that will apply to any panel, but are you going to go into the details of the quick masking panel or not at all?
I will also be discussing that briefly, yeah, because it's really, once you know my technique, my method, you actually know how to use the Quick Mask Pro panel, because that's going to be a breeze then.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you for this class. It was amazing. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you too.
Good night from Australia, Joel. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Stay healthy.
I will.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
you, Joel. Great job. Your weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Cheers, Joe. I'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. See you then. Bye.
Thank you so much, Joel. It was just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Joel.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks you, Joel, from New York.
Thank you. Say hi to New York for me.
Will do.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel. All the best.
Welcome. Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Joel. We'll join you at the next class.
Very nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Florida.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Really good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill, for the explanation of the Pro tool. It's
a much clearer.
I told you already. It's a fantastic tool, and I really like all the work and all the effort you put into it. And it's a fantastic tool. Really appreciate it.
Is it really much clearer for you now? What you can do with it, Marco?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes, it was definitely clear, especially the selection, the selection you did with the marquee, and then doing the restore function. That was quite new for me, so it's an eye opener for a lot of people, I think.
Okay, good to hear that. Thank you, Marco.
Okay, thank you, you, and stay safe.
I will. I will. Mike, Martijn, and Robert, are you still there, guys?
I'm here. Yeah, Mike is here.
Okay. If you can wait a little bit longer, because I want to thank you personally as well.
Okay.
Yep, I'll hang on.
Just like to say thanks, Joel. I'm going to head away and look forward to the advanced masking class.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.